Too much social media may lead to social problems. Dr. Matke says kids learn to become passive engagers.
Tonight, for the first time, we are hearing the unimaginable horror as a sniper perched in a hotel window mowed down concert goers in Las Vegas in October.
Electronic screens can also disrupt sleep, and a lack of good sleep can result in depressed mood, moodiness, and irritability.
Tonight, responders are scrambling to save lives and contain the damage as fires blaze across California.
The measles outbreak. There are now more than 700 cases of the illness in 22 states across the United States.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
There's an active shooter situation in South Florida.
Every 13 seconds there's a divorce in this country. That's true. 2.4 million people get divorced in the United States.
During the last 3 decades, obesity has increased dramatically in the United States. 60% of adults are overweight, 40% are obese, and 8% are severely obese.
Police in Gilroy, California say they have located the vehicle belonging to the gunman in the mass shooting at a food festival.
High levels of stress at work can increase the risk of a heart attack for healthy women by an astonishing 88%.
Today on Personal and Professional Best, our focus is on health and fitness. Specifically, our focus is on our mental health, our mindset. We hope today that we can help all of you become better at managing stress, anxiety, and worry, something we all face off on in your life. With that in mind, we have invited an expert to join us today who speaks specifically to clients all the time on this topic. His name is Dr. Andy Ward. He got his PhD from Georgia State University here on counseling, and he spent the last 20 years of his life investing his time in patients throughout the Atlanta marketplace, dealing with the topic that we're here to deal with today, our mindset specific to stress, anxiety, and worry. Dr. Ward, welcome to Personal Professional Best.
Yes.
Listen, so I looked at your background, your bio, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting and drew me to you, I knew you prior to that, but you wrote your thesis when you were getting out of school on the topic of stress.
Yes.
What motivated you to do that?
Well, as a trained scientist, I'm just naturally curious. I want to know why things are the way they are. So it just seemed interesting, number one. But being a poor graduate student, I was highly stressed. So I just want to know, how could I personally benefit from it?
Sure, there was a lot of us out there that were poor students, and I remember myself personally being very stressed as a result of that moment in my life, right? So there's events that cause stress in our life, or that are more likely to cause stress in our lives. So,
yes.
So you have an expertise, a background, and then you have 20 years actually practicing the thesis that you wrote about. Your practice offers counseling for a variety of circumstances. Obviously, people don't come to you and say, I'm stressed, I'm anxious and worried. They do sometimes.
Yes.
They come to you for a variety of reasons. What are the most common reasons that people show up and say, Dr. Ward, I need your help?
I would say the number one reason is stress, anxiety, and worry. What we're talking about today, number one. I would say a close second is relationship struggles, whether marriage, parent-child, and number three is depression and mood issues.
So we've said in our program here, Personal Professional Best, that relationships are the most important thing we do in life, and becoming successful at relationships gives us the chance to have our best life, live the best version of ourselves. So it makes sense that if the single reason, most common reason that people show up beyond the fact that they're experiencing stress, anxiety, and worry is relationships, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Yeah. So we got to learn how to become better at relationships, yes, if we're ultimately going to bring the stress, anxiety that we're experiencing in our life down. So in the 20 years that you've been practicing counseling, does it seem like stress, anxiety, worry are growing?
Yes. Not only is that my experience, even the data supports that. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I think in today's age, we just don't know how to handle all the stimulation that we get. I mean, from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed, we're usually in front of a phone, a screen, some sort of media, and it's just artificial stimulation that our body historically is not used to dealing with. I also think relationships are just more in trouble these days. There's just too many assaults and threats to the family, to a marriage, etc., and we're paying the price for it.
Wow. So, you know, I did some research prior to you showing up today, and here's some of the articles. Stressed in America, how stress and sleep loss are shortening your life. Chronic stress can shorten your lifespan. People spend most of their waking hours staring at screens. And you asked, is it bad to read the news constantly? And we talked about this a little while ago, but this device, which of course is a technological revolution, right? And it's created so many positive benefits. It also connects us to the news that is 24/7, 365. And the data tells us that people are actually getting news 11 hours a day now. And they were getting it 9 hours a day just 2 years ago. So there's an increase in stress, anxiety, and worry that you're dealing with. And there's also an increase in the amount of news that people are taking in. And because the majority of news, I think I've seen in one of the studies that 90% of the news is actually negative.
Yes,
maybe it's something that we ought to focus on.
And I would say we have enough to worry about in our own lives.
I would say we have plenty to worry about. We can't take on the problems of North Korea, right? We can't take on the problems of Russia and the election. That's not something me and you have any control over. Nope. So maybe we ought to just focus in at home, right? On focusing our time on the relationships that are closest to us in life. Yes, that might help some. Yeah, I was telling you earlier that we went to a Mexican restaurant 2 weeks ago, me and Lisa. And we now have a habit of turning our phones over when we go to dinner, right?
Good for you.
Because otherwise a text will come in and you immediately take your focus from the relationship and move it elsewhere. But a family sat next to us, husband, wife, and 3 children, and literally for the first 10 minutes, they were all on their devices. And I actually was thinking at one point, I wonder if they're texting each other. Like, I think I'm gonna have this for dinner. I think you're gonna have this for dinner. So obviously less of the devices and more relationship might actually impact positively the relationships. So in your opinion, we have these things that are causing relationship issues and causing stress, anxiety, and worry. So if we're gonna fight back, and we talked about that, like this is one of those things, we can become passive, and then the disease can get progressive. Stress, anxiety, and worry can turn into worse, and you'll talk about that here in a second. How do we fight back?
Well, I think it starts with adopting an attitude and a mindset of, I'm not a victim to my stress. I can fight back. I can battle it. And that's the key word. You have to be proactive. You have to be intentional about understanding what's causing you stress and what you can do about it. And I think it all starts with just first asking yourself some very hard questions about, what is my part in this? May I be even feeding my stress? Rather than just it's something out there happening to me. And that's always the first step.
You know, I think most people feel like they're in this alone, right? So their story is unique, and so their stress, anxiety, and worry is justified.
Yes.
And it's real. I mean, people are experiencing it, so it's not that the symptom of it is not real. But I think the point that just like any other medical disease, right, there are things we can do to remedy and to correct and to change the outcome of our physical life. We can do the same thing in our mental life.
Absolutely. Because if you don't, as you alluded to a moment ago, stress will lead to distress if you don't actually battle it in a healthy way. And then that distress can lead to depression and then to burnout. And that's a scary place to be in true burnout, when you just don't want to engage in life.
So I think a lot of folks that are in the audience today, like myself, grew up thinking that if they reached out to someone like yourself in counseling for help, that's different than reaching out to a lawyer for legal help, or reaching out to a medical doctor for medical help, or reaching out to an accountant for accounting help. But I feel like, based on the data and the impact that stress and anxiety and worry is having on people's physical lives, their relational lives, it's keeping them from being the best version of themselves, certainly, that they need to get more comfortable reaching out to folks like yourself to get advice. So have you experienced that improving, that people are comfortable reaching out, or do people really need to rethink the way they're using tools like yourself?
Well, I still think even though it's better, there still is a stigma about going to see a professional. Or even speaking to a mentor, just opening up and being vulnerable about here's where I really am and here's where I need help. But you know, when people do that, when they kind of just realize I have to get help, I need to get out of my own way and just seek help, it tends to get better.
You know, one of the things we've done here at Supreme, and we encourage all of you to join us, we do our goals annually, Best GPS, and then we have accountability groups where we assemble as groups, and what happens is people share their goals in their life. They also share, when they get comfortable, they share their vulnerabilities, the things that are going on in their life. And to your point, you can find a friend then, or a coworker or a boss who can be that voice in your life, who may have experienced something similar in the past, and they can give you some advice specifically to dealing with some of the challenges that you have in life. But the point only is, I think that you're making is, whether it's reaching out to you as a professional or someone else, people need to feel comfortable talking about what they're experiencing.
That's absolutely true. And in the times when someone actually said after the fact, I was really reluctant to come, but when they said, I'm just so glad I did, it's so rewarding for me as a professional, because that's just another indication of somebody actually was helped. They just needed to admit they needed help.
Okay, so now they've reached out to you. They now have someone who is a professional who can hear their story, understand what they're experiencing. Maybe there's going to be medication involved that will help impact. So let's talk about that a bit, but then also, what are the other things you recommend if someone's really experiencing stress, anxiety, and worry in their life that they can do to fight back?
Yeah. Well, I break it down again into what is the psychological piece you can affect and what's the physical, right? The physical is the one that you can affect today. I mean, we now know that cortisol, the stress hormone, is implicated in so many problems when a person is under chronic stress. It suppresses immune functioning. It causes actually belly fat in men to be more prevalent. It affects attention and concentration and memory. And we know that just engaging in aerobic exercise on a regular basis is probably the most effective strategy in dealing with cortisol. On a psychological standpoint, we know that how a person frames their stress and really come to understand that they may have more power to influence it than they realize, then it changes the whole calculus of understanding, well, what is stress to begin with, and then can I actually get better?
So they come to you, they get some advice, you dig in, get to root cause, like what's really causing it. It may be that medication is a part of the solution, but you're also going to be recommending, in conjunction with medication, that people take a look at other areas of their life, diet, exercise, that they take a look at how they're managing their money, the things relationally that are going on in their life, so that they can begin to fight back. Because if we can get our relationships to actually be more successful, and we can get in better physical shape and be regular, and we can get in better financial shape, we got a much better chance of reducing stress, anxiety, and worry. Fair?
Oh, absolutely spot on.
Yeah, so the Personal Professional Best program is really designed. It is designed to put you in more control of minimizing the root causes that create events with stress, anxiety. And we're talking about something that can start out as one thing, I'm stressed, and some people manage it differently.
Yeah.
And it can turn into a whole much more serious problem, as you've talked about, depression and otherwise.
And I would even add, a first step usually is educating people on actually what stress really is. Being busy, having a lot to do on our to-do list is not in and of itself the definition of stress. It's how you cope with your stress. And when there's a gap between your demands and your perceived coping, that is the technical definition of stress.
You know, I had a conversation with two different associates here at Supreme in the last month. And that was really the cause for the topic this month. And the conversation was independent of each other, but they were approaching saying, and what they said is, I'm really stressed, okay? This business is really stressful. And after I did a little research, I had to tell both of them that it didn't make the top 10 list. meaning our business, mortgage banking, real estate, it's not on the list of the top 10 most stressful jobs in America. And that wasn't to try to tell them that their experiences, what they were experiencing, was not real or true, because stress, anxiety, and worry is real and true to the person that's experiencing. But it was trying to get them to spend a little bit more time with someone like yourself or otherwise with another counselor in their life, really to maybe discover what else is going on in their life that may be the root cause of it, because of course people make career changes, they do a lot of different things to relieve themselves of stress or try to find a way to have less anxiety or worry in their life. And they may not be solving the problem, they just may be relocating it someplace else.
Yes, and again, this is kind of a cool thing that we know due to science, but we now know that when a person is actually coping well with stress, you actually have a more robust immune system. You can fight off disease, colds, and actually just be healthier when you're busy, but you're actively coping well with stress.
So outside of college, have you ever been stressed?
I'm married, and I'm a parent, of course.
Yeah, you know, I think sometimes when someone's professionally in a job like you are, where you're dealing with, because I was thinking when you were on your way here today, I was thinking, so what Dr. Ward does all day long is people come and tell him about all of their stress and problems in life, and I was curious as to whether or not, is there a transference of that from then to you then?
Well, it helps that my wife is a trained counselor too.
Oh,
so,
beautiful.
You know,
so you guys counsel each other?
Basically. It's like, whose turn on the couch is it, right?
You know, the audience, is, if you've been with us in the past, you know that we've been very intentional here with our personal professional best program with our plans. You know, last year I told Lisa, wherever you want to go to dinner, you call the ball, I'll go, right? Why? It took stress out of our relationship.
Yeah.
A simple thing like who's picking where we go to dinner. This year, my plan in my personal life, relational life, was not to get mad at Lisa all year. Twice so far this year I've been mad at her, but for a very short period of time. Why? Because it's intentional. And I think, you know, you used the term fight back. And so let's just wrap up by telling the audience, you know, if they are experiencing a high level of stress, worry, anxiety, or if there's someone that matters to them in their life, a son or a daughter, as a family member, significant other, somebody in the workplace, if they're experiencing those symptoms, what should they do? If you were going to give them like a 2, 3, 4 step, this is your son, your daughter, somebody's really important to you and you know that they're experiencing, what do they do?
Well, first of all, again, you talk to somebody about your stress. Get outside input just to make sure you're seeing everything correctly. You don't have blind spots. 2, you have an uptick, in your physical activity. 3, you look at self-care. How much sleep are you getting? What's your diet, right? The things that absolutely affect the sense of being stressed or not. Have fun. I mean, here's something I like to coach professionals in. When are you actually turning it off and actually delving into your family or delving into your hobbies, things that actually provide a sense of release? There are times when we need to not be needed. And even if we have to put a hard boundary on that, that is very critical to the coping process. And so those are just some basic things to start with.
You know, I'll share my story a little bit later about a moment in my life when I was in college and how stressed I was. But what I have found is being intentional in my relationship with my wife and with my kids and with my workplace, being intentional about my health and fitness, being intentional about managing my money. These things, by having intention and by focusing on them and having those things in the best place possible in life, I should, employing 170 people, closing 536 loans, I should be carrying a bit of stress, anxiety, and worry, but I don't. I don't carry a lot of it. And so that doesn't make me better than anyone in the audience today, other than I wanted to share with all of you today, with Dr. Ward, some ideas, some real specific ideas that if you are experiencing or someone that you love is experiencing, care about experience, the things that you can do intentionally to fight back and to win the battle and become your best with stress, anxiety, and worry. Dr. Ward, thank you so much for being here today and being a part of Personal Professional Best.
You bet.
Dr. Ward's best advice about how to combat stress, anxiety, and worry in our life is through diet and exercise. Let's go visit Bobby Aldridge at Senergy Fitness, who's an expert on the topic of diet and exercise. Let's roll. Let's go see my buddy Bobby. Hey, we made it to Senergy Fitness, and I'm here with my personal trainer, Bobby Aldridge. Bobby is an expert. He got his degree in exercise science. Bobby, we just finished with Dr. Ward, and we're talking about stress, anxiety, and worry. And he brought up this concept of cortisol, all right?
The stress hormone.
What's up with cortisol?
Cortisol and adrenaline, both are hormones, stress hormones that flood the system when you're under stressful situations. So think fight or flight, right? You're running from a dinosaur back in the day, and you're going to kill it. Fight or flight. And when it's over, those tend to go down. But if you're under chronic stress, it could be a bad relationship or whatever it is, chronic stress, those hormones stay high. So if they stay high, headaches, insomnia, weight gain, moodiness, all the bad things associated.
Doesn't sound good for relationships,
it's
by the
good.
way. Cortisol and relationships
you
and
don't
being
want
successful.
It. You don't want it to stay
thing.
up high.
And so diet and exercise can help control cortisol.
Of course, yes, and I'm sure we're going to go over that.
We are
in just a
going
moment.
to. Here we go. So what's the biggest difference you see in your clients based on the idea that they are active? So once they come and they start getting active and they've got a regimen, diet and exercise, what's the biggest difference you notice in your clients?
So physically, weight loss, better cholesterol levels, blood sugars levelize, lose weight, stronger. So all the good things physically, right? But mentally, what we notice is better moods, less stress. They go home from work, they don't take it out on a spouse.
So better for relationships,
yeah,
right?
or a child or a dog or a road rage. They just leave the stress behind. They burn it off when they exercise.
And we both have a mutual friend now.
Yes.
Gal who works for us, who started training with you about a year ago, and she's one of the rock stars now here at Senergy Fitness. But she, and I've seen her in business. I've seen her productivity, her customer service, just her general appearance, beyond the physical side, just her physical appearance. I've seen it change. Thank you so much, by the way, for the work you're doing with her and for everybody else, including myself. Let's see, if someone in the audience today, Bobby, if they're not doing anything, they're not dieting well, and they're not doing anything exercise-wise, how do they get started?
We tell people when they come in, start by starting. Start something, but start small, right? If you're doing nothing, is it a 5-minute walk? Is it a 10-minute walk? Or is it starting a streamed tape? Is it riding a bike or swimming? So start small and then start integrating a little more cardio and a little more strength training, which is just calisthenics. You can do push-ups and squats anywhere, right? Or a plank during a commercial. So you can start small, work your way up, and then seek professional guidance after that.
Yeah, there's not a shortage of programs out there, right? There's a million things you could do.
Just don't start with a marathon. Start with a 5-minute walk.
One of the great lines that Bobby has is, sitting is the next smoking. Spend 10 seconds on that if you would.
Well, sitting, they have correlated with as bad effects as there is for smoking. So it's not the same. You're not going to necessarily get lung cancer from sitting too long, but you're going to have a whole host of health problems, right? So it's really recommended to every hour of work, stand up twice. So every 25 minutes, stand up for 5 minutes. Stretch the neck, shoulders, hamstrings, and back, because that's what starts hurting everyone sitting at the desk all day is their low back, tight hamstrings. So they don't have a bad back, they have a tight back. So just stand up, walk around twice an hour.
Perfect. You know, when I started 5 years ago with Bobby, the first thing he said when I walked in, we've known each other for a long time, he said, "Have you been to the doctor yet?" And I said, "I haven't." He said, "You go there first, get your physical, you come back and see me, show me all the information." And so I know that you're a big advocate. If you're not out there doing anything right now, go to your doctor first, get a baseline, and then find an expert like Bobby to help you. Okay, let's move on. Let's start with diet. We often talk about in life that simple is brilliant. That's what we talk about at Supreme. Tell us, from a diet standpoint, what should we do? Think about diet in a simple way. Tell us what to do.
Well, I usually get very long-winded on diet. So I tell people to eat less. Eat less crap.
Eat less crap.
But focus on leans, greens, fruits, and nuts.
Again?
Leans, greens, fruits, and nuts. And a lot of water. You know, cut the colas, cut the fruit juices, just high in sugar, high in calories. Focus on the leans, the greens, the fruits, and the nuts.
Leans, greens, fruits, and nuts. I love it. Eat less,
crap.
Eat better, and eat less crap. Right, exactly. Let's move on. There's different options for exercise. There's a million different programs, right? Weights are for muscle development, muscle building, right? You have cardiovascular. We'll get to that in a second. But in terms of weights, why should people work from a muscular standpoint as they get older, like myself? Why?
Well, we naturally lose muscle as we age. Our hormones are dropping, so our lean tissue drops. So we have to fight that with a little bit of resistance training. It doesn't have to be Olympic training. Like I said before, push-ups and lunges, body weight can even keep the muscle where it needs to be. It's metabolically active. It means it burns calories. Fat does not. Muscle burns calories, and it keeps us standing up straight. It helps our posture, strengthens our bones, and will help us lift grandkids and things like that. Pops.
Grandkids, pops, that's right. I became a grandpop in the last year.
Congrats.
So it's important that you keep your muscle structure so that you can actually
play with them.
Play with them, right. It's absolutely fab. Okay, so outside of the gym, we're not here, we're not getting physical. What can people do at home and in the workplace? What can they do to actually affect their health and their fitness by exercise? What can they do?
Well, workplace, like we just mentioned, stand up, move, get moving twice an hour, right? Get moving, stretch out, take a break, back off. If you're stressed out by you had this crazy deadline, back off from it for just a minute. Go see someone instead of texting them, calling them, or emailing them. That'll get you out of the desk for a second. Listen to calming music on the way home or a motivational book on tape on the way home. That'll get you through the road rage potential, right, on the way home. We like to stress physical activity, so get moving. Is it yoga, meditation? Is it a hobby, gardening? Is it swimming, biking, hanging with friends? There's so many things you can do to get out of the stressful situation and to get the body moving, to burn the anxiety.
Just take a walk, right?
Just walk.
Get at the workplace, at home, just get out.
It starts with that.
With your spouse, significant other, with your kids, and just take a walk and leave the phones back at home. How about that? We started with cortisol. We've talked about a variety of programs. We know there's a million different programs. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is accountability, right? Because our program, Personal and Professional Best, is a lot about accountability. You have a place you want to get to. There's where you are. There's the plan to get there. And then there's that person in your life to hold you accountable. This is my guy. I get a text like every single day. What'd you weigh this morning? And when I get here, it's what did you eat last night and what did you drink last night? Tell us about accountability as we close today.
So I would say, yeah, set a goal to move, to get active. Find an activity that you enjoy, because you're not going to stick with it if you don't enjoy it. And then find an accountability partner. And it can be a friend, a spouse, a trainer, a dietitian, someone to help you set a realistic goal, give you the information for the right path to achieve it, and then hold you accountable on whatever period of time. Is it daily, weekly, or monthly to reach it?
Or you can be employed at Supreme Lending and have us as an accountability partner. Or you can be a partner of Supreme Lending in the real estate community and have us as a partner. Bobby, thank you so much for being a guest today on Personal and Professional Best.
My pleasure. $1,000. Excellent.
This is my light day today, just doing 1,000 reps. Hey, Bobby, thanks so much for investing in my life and helping me to reduce my stress, anxiety, and worry. To my friends in the real estate community, what stresses you out?
All right, Pat, another 1,000. Let's go. 1, 2.
So what stresses me out is pressures of time management.
When my buyers and sellers can't make up their mind on what they're going to do.
When I have a listing sitting too long.
Unexpected expenses add stress to my life.
Probably the biggest thing that adds stress to my life is not having my finances in order.
Paperwork and the nitty-gritty things.
Slow drivers in the left lane.
The slow drivers.
Slow drivers.
They don't know how to use their turn signals.
And usually I end up going around them in the right lane.
Being a mom is stressful, and making sure that you don't turn your child into a little is stressful.
My kids do, but I love them dearly.
I've only got one daughter, so she stresses me out a lot.
You know, I think life is absolutely stressful. It can be family, kids, you know, making sure you're raising them right and teaching them, you know, how to do the right thing always is probably the thing that keeps me up most at night.
Breathing and making lists.
Once a week I go and I just let out all of my stress on the bowling pins.
I have more open houses. I just try to find peace, just the best way possible.
I go to the gym and I lift heavy things.
When I'm feeling stressed, I go see my chiropractor.
I get hangry.
I'm a stressed eater, so there's not much a good piece of chocolate can't fix.
Pray, or I will journal, or wine.
Oh yes, wine. Yeah, wine is very helpful. Yes.
I was gonna say a bottle of wine, but I'll just say a glass of wine every now and then to relieve stress.
You know, I deal with it by setting goals and focusing on what I can control and leaning into my faith heavily and trusting that God's given me guidance and wisdom.
Kryptonite is the enemy that prohibits Superman from being his best. Stress, anxiety, and worry is arguably all of our kryptonite, the enemy that prohibits all of us from being our best. Today we confirmed our enemy, and in response, we offered expert advice on how we can all fight back against our enemy. Number one, talk to a professional or talk to a friend and get help. Number two, adopt a mindset, the best mindset. How? Put down the phone. Stop watching the news. Feed your eyes, feed your ears, and your heart healthy, positive news. Number three, exercise more. After you visit your doctor and get a checkup, invest 30 minutes a day walking, jogging, running, biking, swimming, whatever you do, get moving. 4, eat better. Leans, greens, fruits, and nuts, and drink plenty of water. 5, invest in yourself spiritually. Meditate, do yoga, or you can do what I do daily. You can read, in my opinion, the best self-help book of all time, the Bible. Specifically, the book tells us, do not worry, do not be anxious. And it also reminds us to not be afraid 365 times, once for every day of the year. Finally, visit supremebest.com and register your goals on our best GPS. Then, adopt an accountability partner and share your plans and your progress. If you do, you can win the battle against stress, anxiety, and worry, and you can and will become the best version of you. I am, and as a result, I'm winning the battle against kryptonite, and I'm becoming the best version of me. I am Supreme.